We're about 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Scarlet Fu and Katie Greifeld here to help you help all of us take you through the closing bell. Is a global simulcast.
Is it Friday yet, Scarlet?
I know,
Come on, we need it already.
It's Friday Eve. That is Carol Massar, of course, and Norah Mulinda, who is in for Tim Stedovic. And of course, in doing so, we bring together our Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg Radio crew, and our YouTube audiences worldwide to parse through the most crucial moments of the trading day. And Carol, you look at a chart of the S&P 500. We opened higher, and it's been a slow drift lower through most of the day before finding some stability at the end of the day. It looks like we have resumed the declines that we had seen last week.
It's a kind of interesting trade, right? It just feels like we're losing some, I don't know, maybe just some momentum here. But we did kick off our 2 p.m. hours saying the S&P 500 has seen an almost 30% surge from those April lows. So maybe the markets are just, I don't know, mellowing out a little bit and kind of consolidating a bit.
Well, Carol, big firms are also warning that clients should prepare for near-term pullbacks. August and September, notably, have been some of the worst 2 months for the S&P 500 historically.
That's true. Seasonality a factor here. It's very much August. These are light markets. I will say you did see breadth deteriorate throughout the day, and I thought that was interesting because when we opened this market at 9:30, I was sitting next to Matt Miller. You had way more gainers than losers. You had more than 400 names in the S&P 500 in the green. Carol, I know you'll walk us through the specific numbers, but that is not the case right now at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's an even split almost. 233 to the upside and 267 to the downside. So I think that's a super point to have made, that in terms of investor sentiment kind of pulling back here.
All right, let's take a look at how things are shaping up as the closing bells are getting ready to be rung. You do have declines in the S&P 500 and the Dow Industrials. The Nasdaq does finish with a gain on the day. The Nasdaq closing up about 1/3 of 1%. The S&P 500 losing just a marginal 1/10 of 1%. So coming up a little bit here at the close, and the Dow Industrials losing 0.5 of 1%. As for the small caps, that group is lower by 0.3 of 1% for the Russell 2000.
Is it a closing bell if we have no bell? I'm just going to put that out there. We're going to take it. We're going to take it.
Question.
We live on the clock. We're going to go there. I'm going to go back to what I just said, and Katie putting out that we kind of did have an even split in terms of the broader market and gainers and losers. 244 names in the S&P 500. Katie gaining ground today. 252 to the downside. 7 unchanged.
Yeah, it's a similar picture if you take a look at the sector breakdown for the day. You had 6 in the green, 5 in the red leading. You can see that big tech had a good day in the form of information technology. Also utilities getting in there as well. Consumer staples not doing too hot to get today. No surprise, healthcare. Of course, we know that Eli Lilly had a terrible day.
All right, let's get to some earnings right away because there's a whole slew of them coming. And let's start with the online travel company Expedia. Second quarter, for the quarter that ended, gross bookings of $30.41 billion, higher than what was anticipated, which was $29.78 billion. Adjusted EPS beating analyst estimates as well. Revenue, $3.79 billion, slightly higher than what was anticipated there. As for the outlook, it sees third quarter revenue growth of 4 to 6%, previously anticipated 3.6%. Expedia also increasing its full year guidance as well. Revenue growth of 3 to 5%, previously saw 2 to 4%. The consensus estimate is 3.6%. So the midpoint of its new outlook for growth is higher than the consensus estimate. That stock marginally higher by 0.75%.
All right, that one's marginally higher. Here's one that's soaring in the aftermarket. Akamai Technology, ticker AKAM. And let's go to the company's outlook. Third quarter revenue, they're looking for $1.04 billion to $1.05 billion. So raising perhaps the outlook there. The estimate on the street is $1.04 billion. Sees fiscal year revenue, $4.14 billion to $4.21 billion, had seen $4.05 billion to $4.20 billion, $4.2 billion, I should point out there. And then it also sees third quarter adjusted EPS of $1.62 to $1.66. That's way above the street estimate of $1.51. And it also sees third quarter adjusted operating margin of 28%. That too, Katie, is above the street estimate of 27.2%. And again, that stock we did see move up about 7.8% here in the aftermarket.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Trade Desk. These numbers coming out. Second quarter results, adjusted EPS actually beating estimates. An interesting headline here, though. There's a CFO change. They're appointing Alex Kale as the new CFO. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. You can see that that's not necessarily helping shares after hours. Shares down almost 25% right now. Third quarter revenue, they see that at least $717 million. That is slightly ahead of the estimate for $716.2 million. Third quarter adjusted EBITDA also seen a little bit higher than the estimate, but you can see shares really taking a hit here, perhaps due to the fact that they are announcing the CFO change, but we're going to try to get some more detail here.
All right. I also want to bring in TripAdvisor. We mentioned Expedia a little bit earlier on. TripAdvisor's second quarter revenue missing average analyst estimates, $529 million versus the consensus estimate of $531. You look at advertising and media revenue, that was also lighter than anticipated, along with the core revenue for TripAdvisor, also weaker than expected. However, the adjusted EPS of 46 cents does top the consensus estimate by 5 pennies, and you can see the stock up by 2.4% right now.
Looking at shares of Expedia, really getting a welcome surge here. We're seeing the stock popping as much as 15% in the after hours trade. This is after the company raised its full year sales outlook. They're saying that they're reporting strong second quarter bookings. They're really pointing to its enterprise business as well as an improved demand here for U.S. customers.
All right, guys, I want to get to Block, which is crossing here in the aftermarket. Ticker is, of course, XYZ. Stock is up about 3.25% here as the company's numbers cross. Let's get to the outlook. Sees fiscal year adjusted operating income of $2.03 billion. It had seen below that at $1.9 billion, and that is pretty much what the street's been forecasting. So it's upping its fiscal year adjusted operating income. It also sees fiscal year gross profit of $10.17 billion. It had seen about $9.96 billion. Street estimate was pretty much at that level as well. And let's just take a look at the quarter that was, second quarter adjusted EPS, 62 cents a share. That's a miss, folks. It's about 8 cents light, but investors seem to be focusing on the outlook, Katie, and that stock's up 5.5% here in the aftermarket.
All right, let's talk about the Real because it's absolutely flying after hours right now. The Real, it boosted its revenue guidance for the full year. It also beat the average analyst estimate. So it sees revenue for the full year $667 million to $674 million. The previous range was $654 million to $660 million. So you can see, of course, that is helping boost the shares right now. Shares had been much lower year to date, though, about 49% on a total return basis. So this good news really explains that big pop that you're seeing after hours right now.
All right, let's go now to Flutter, which of course was formerly Paddy Power, the online betting company. Let's talk about the second quarter adjusted EPS, $2.95, higher than the consensus estimate of $2.14. Adjusted EBITDA of $919 million, also higher than the anticipated amount. And second quarter revenue, $4.19 billion, better than the expected $4.12 billion. Full year group revenue is seen at $17.26 billion. The stock marginally higher right now in after hours trading.
All right, guys, I'm going to go back to Block because it's about 5 or 6% higher here in the aftermarket. A few more headlines coming through. The company second quarter Cash App monthly transacting actives at 57 million, and that's pretty much in line with what the street was expecting. 57.3 million was what the street was forecasting. And again, what's really moving that stock up 8.4% here in the aftermarket. A good indicator too in terms of what's going on in the economy, the amount of velocity, if you will, certainly among the spending folks. Again, the outlook sees fiscal year adjusted operating income, and that is upping. They're upping it to $2.03 billion. They had seen $1.9 billion, which was pretty much, Katie, what the street estimate was. So, yeah, investors liking that outlook there, up about 8%.
Yeah, it also helps that it seems like the bar is pretty low for Block, at least if you take a look at the shares, down about 10% if you round up on a total return basis year to date. So that certainly helps when it comes to the different sentiment for these different reports coming into the closing bells today.
And just one more to add to the mix as well. Live Nation just reporting earnings. We have second quarter revenue of $7.01 billion, slightly higher than the anticipated $6.89 billion. Adjusted operating income for the quarter was $798.4 million. million. Analysts were looking for just above 756 million. So operating income and revenue beating analyst estimates. We know that the company certainly benefiting from a lot of demand for those summer concerts. The stock, nevertheless, down about 2% right now.
All right, it is down about 2%. Let's take a look at GoDaddy. This company seeing third quarter revenue at 1.22 billion to 1.24. Street estimate is 1.23 billion. Sees fiscal year revenue of 4.89 billion to 4.94 billion. It had seen 4.86 billion to 4.94 billion. And taking a look at the quarter that was, second quarter revenue, 1.2 billion. And that is pretty much in line with what the street was expecting. And the stock just a little bit lower, down about 0.8% here in the aftermarket.
And let's just check in on Instacart as well. It's called Maple Bear, just to make things a little bit confusing, but
more fun.
Yeah, good news coming for Instacart. Its third quarter adjusted EBITDA forecast beat estimates, a really robust outlook here. It sees third quarter adjusted EBITDA at 260 million to 270 million. The previous estimate had been for just about $257.8 million. So order growth seeming to gain pace here, and you can see that coming through in these numbers for Instacart, currently higher by about 9% after hours.
And I just want to point out, Yelp out with second quarter net revenue. That too is a beat, and their second quarter EPS coming in better than forecast. So yeah, a big drop of earnings here after the close.